So remember that time when the Timbers beat FC Dallas 3-1 and drew 2-2 in Frisco during regular season play in 2015? Because I do. And remember how FC Dallas was pretty dominant most of last season? I also remember that. So we'll get to that later. But first things first, does the MLS get affected more by international call-ups? I know I've heard complaints on international call-ups being frustrating for European clubs during the, quote, business end of the season. There's generally international duties in March, which isn't the very end of European seasons, but it's getting towards it for sure. So that's one of the talking points going into this weekend, and it's relevant, and I know a lot of people want us to switch to the full-on international schedule of soccer, and maybe that would work. I don't know, maybe it wouldn't. I think it'd be really hard, though, at this point to do that, and we can talk about it all we want, but nobody really talks about what the logistics of that would be. Would there have to be an abbreviated season in the run-up to that? So basically, say next year we decide we're going to switch to the late summer to late spring schedule, like the rest of the world. So MLS 2015-16 season is going to end in December. That'll be the championship game. So the majority of the teams will have finished by then. So then the off season goes from, we'll just say for the majority of the league, it goes from November to March. And then supposed to begin in April. So if we switch to the traditional schedule, it would make the MLS brand have to take off close to 6 months in between seasons. So it'd be very NFL of the MLS to do that 1 year. But I think, personally, the bigger challenge to what MLS is doing is going up against, in the business part of the season, going up against NFL on Sundays. In reality, I think having the bigger games be on Saturdays might actually be a better deal. I don't know how it would work with people going out and doing stuff on Saturday afternoons. College football is able to make it work, but maybe that's more of a attendance-driven sport as well, like the MLS is. I don't know. Just saying. MLS is definitely an attendance-driven sport. It beats out on attendance way better than it does in ratings, so there's definitely an argument for not having Sunday games. Anyways, let's see. So last week, about 2 weeks ago now, I said how I don't believe in the argument of playing against a team with a diminished side, as in the case of the U.S. men's national team, when our many homers are very quick to point out that the teams we're playing up against are playing against or are weakened by injuries or red card suspensions and the like. First thing, the most recent one I can remember is I believe Kendall Waston from Costa Rica was going to be out for whatever reason in the match against Costa Rica, and we pointed out that I think Alexi Lawless pointed out that was going to help the U.S. So there's that standard. It's like, I think we can beat Costa Rica with or without Kendall Waston. But in a domestic cup campaign, I'm fully okay with getting a scrappier win against a team who's been weakened by injuries or call-ups. I feel like, after all, the Timbers have had their fair share of injuries, and hey, it's fair for us to once in a while benefit from somebody else's misfortune. So last week we probably benefited from Dempsey not being there, but more importantly, I think we really benefited from Adi being in the starting 11. And I know there's definitely mixed reactions to that, and a lot of people supported Porter, and maybe for all intents and purposes he should be supported. But I do believe Porter, being from the college level, that decision was basically stemmed from his experience coaching at the college level. I get the arguments that not punishing would have possibly hurt the locker room attitudes, and that's fair enough. But I really think Portland's bigger than that. I could be wrong, so just food for thought. But I do think ultimately Porter, to me, he's a nice guy, but his college past could definitely be a crutch. So a week late, but the Timbers got the win that they should have gotten in Seattle. A couple quick thoughts. First things first, I do feel terrible for Demsey, but it is what it is. And the Timbers, like I said, had their fair share of injuries. So if the Sounders can't respond with missing a player, that's on the Sounders. That's not on the Timbers. It also doesn't hurt that Dempsey's, in my opinion, not the most likable person. I'm censoring myself a little bit. I wanted to use a much harsher word, but so his health ultimately is going to be fine, but I feel it's a little bit of karma coming back to haunt him. So going into this match later today against Dallas, I do feel as if Dallas is going to be the harder hit team by international call-ups. That's not to say that missing the partnership in the midfield that Nagbe brings won't be hard to overcome. It's, he's one of our key players. He's one of our game changers, if you will. But Dallas, I think, looks to be the weakened side. I hope Dallas losing Acosta and Guerreza will hurt their ability to move the ball into their attacking third. So let's just go over quickly, I guess, before I go any further, who exactly Dallas is missing. They will be without, and I'll go through the last 5 games. I think that's a good cross-section of what they've done. So they'll be out without midfielder Tasho Akindele, who has only started 1 game out of the last 5. He played their last second Champions League leg against Real Esteli. Previous 4 games, he was a sub. Carlos Grueza, more of a defensive midfielder, predominantly, I should say. He started in all 5 of their last 5 matches. Kellen Acosta, who is a budding U.S. national, and from the U.S. men's national team perspective, he's an exciting player. But he'll be out, and he's also kind of a midfield. I think the U.S. men's national team, he's playing more of a left back role, but he's also features heavily in the midfield for Dallas, and he started 4 of their last 5 matches. The only match he subbed in was in their Champions League match, which shows how important he is. Then we have Maynor Figueroa, who started all 5 of their last 5 matches. And finally, Aubrey David, another defender. He only started the last 2 matches. Of those 5 players, Grueza, Figueroa, David, and Acosta all started in their match against RSL. And that's a key point, in my opinion. And that's something that I think the Timbers are really going to want to look at. I hope they do look at leading into this game. Acosta for FC Dallas, he seems to switch between being able to play defensive mid and attacking mid. So they do have reserves in that realm as far as people that can float, just like Acosta does. And I do believe FC Dallas is a well-rounded team, and that's why they've been able to go from being runner-up for the Supporters' Shield last season to being the favorites to win the Supporters Shield this year. I want to know how they did it, first off. If I could tell Merritt Paulson one thing, I'd say, how is FC Dallas able to rebound from being the team with the second best record in MLS in 2015 to being the team with the best record in MLS? And it goes back to something Taylor Twellman said a few weeks ago, was that one problem in American sports is that we reward mediocrity. So the best teams, instead of getting more money that they should get because their players now demand a higher salary because they performed well, and therefore teams like Portland have to sell some of their best players, like Jorge Villafana, just to get below the salary cap. And then we reward the teams at the bottom by giving them better draft picks. And so somehow Dallas was able to rebound very well, and that's something that should be studied and figured out and dissected. It's not because of attendance, because they have one of the lowest attendance averages in the league. Something else is going on, and whoever their ownership group is, they're doing something right. So all praise to Dallas' side. On August 20th, like I said, Dallas played RSL, and it seems like Acosta was maybe in more of an attacking role. Somebody that will be in the game on Saturday is Victor Ulloa. He played in more of a defending mid role, and Acosta and Ulloa kind of flip-flopped in their roles. But RSL won that game 1-0. I think that is really a key to what the Timbers are going to have to do to get a win. Hopefully a win, at least a draw on Saturday. Slight disclaimer, I'm a youth soccer coach, but I'm not going to pretend that I could even consult at a pro level, let alone even assistant coach. But I do know having an effective midfield is pretty much necessary to win games against good teams. And I would say the Timbers are a good team. Case in point, we are getting scrappy wins, we're getting scrappy draws, and we're above the red line, and we're going to hopefully make a playoff push. But U.S. men's national team, Klinsmann's main tactic is move his forwards up the field, have his midfielders send in a deep ball, and hope his number 9 can come down with the ball. To digress a little bit. However, if you're Leicester City, you can win the Premier League playing like that, but I think most people agree that was out of pride on the part of EPL managers, that basically they all played into Leicester's hands last year in the Premier League. I think from what I saw of that RSL match, FC Dallas really had only one good shot in that whole match, and it happened to be a long ball to Urruti, who failed to finish. And my guess is Dallas will heavily play the long ball based on what their midfield's going to look like. That's my prediction. And they can play the long ball in, try to get it down the field to Urruti, but I just don't see that is a huge weakness for the Timbers. And from what I've seen this season, the Timbers' main weakness has been set pieces. So my hope is that Vitas will hopefully learn from that really horrible challenge on Roldan, and we won't give up silly penalties like that. Secondly, I really hope the back line will really fight hard to not give up corner kicks and dangerous set pieces, and I think that's going to be the key to a draw or a win. Would love to see a win on Saturday, and I really went into that away match at Seattle thinking that the Timbers could get 3 points on the road. I 100% believed it, even with Ladero. I was wrong. I watched that whole game from beginning to end. It was a train wreck. I checked out the Timbers Army threat level the next day, kind of in hoping for a laugh, and if anything, but it was pretty amazing that the Timbers were able to follow that up with a decisive win back in Portland. And like I said before, I know Demsey wasn't there, who is a key factor in a lot of what they do in the offensive third, but they still had some of their key pieces as far as Ladero was there, and we all thought he was a game changer. And it's interesting to see how somebody who can decisively change the balance of a season in Ladero, then the first game without Demsey, it's like kind of, they looked like fish out of water. It was very surprising. I guess it shows how important of a player Demsey is. Let's see. Final thoughts. Another silver lining is there was probably a lot of people who thought there was a good chance that the Timbers were going to have trouble getting 3 points in that last match against Seattle. And probably at best thought we would just get 1 point, and we eventually got 3. Stayed above the red line. In the run-up to that game, a lot of important teams also lost, including San Jose. Of the 3 teams fighting for that 6th spot, Timbers, Sounders, Earthquakes. I don't see the Earthquakes salvaging 3 points during the international break, or even 6 points. I'm not sure how many games. I need to look at the schedule. I think the Sounders are going to have trouble winning without Ladero, Jordan Morris, Demsey. I'm not sure how the Earthquakes are going to fare. I know Wondolowski is out there with the U.S. men's national team, and I think by and large, and I don't want to say we can win long-term without Nagbe, but I do believe we are seeing a Portland Timbers that are a full unit. We have guys that can step up and fill that void in the meantime. I'm definitely excited to see it unfold. Ultimately, my prediction, Timbers are going to win tomorrow, or Saturday, 2-1 against FC Dallas, and it'll be exciting to see. So anyways, thanks for tuning in to the second edition of Hoban's Heroes. Let's go Timbers.